Hi, I'm Jenny with Kids Learning for Life. Stacey and I recently did a Facebook Live event in which we discussed how you could stay motivated for the new year in your homeschool. So we kind of cut it together and made it into a video for you here so that you can watch it anytime, even if you missed it. So check it out. Okay, well, to start out, it's the end of 2020. Thank goodness. I mean, who knows how much better 2021 will be, but I guess, it's been an interesting year, especially for homeschooling. Not any in-person activities really, public schools not being a thing the way they used to anymore.
That is the weirdest
Yeah, we just kind of
thing to me.
What, the public school?
Yeah, everybody just is shut down. Everything was shut down. It's like the weirdest thing that has ever happened in my lifetime so far.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have experience teaching in a classroom, so it's like probably such a strange thing. Like our kids have always been homeschooled, so it didn't really impact us the same way as it probably affected many, many other people. But yeah, I mean, you had an experience with the classroom, a lot of teachers, so I can't even imagine. I mean, it's been rough for teachers this year for sure, and all the students.
Even more so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just wanted to mention first and foremost to anyone who's new to homeschooling, this is not normal. I remember like last year was my first year homeschooling, and we were able to go to the park, library story times. We were able to go to in-person events. So like in-person classes, and this year none of that has been possible basically for the whole year. So yeah, that's definitely not normal. Usually when you're homeschooling, it doesn't feel isolating. That's never how it should feel. You should have plenty of other opportunities to connect with other people and to network and to have your kids out there socializing. So if you're new to homeschooling, please don't write it off as this is too hard because we don't get to see anyone. That's not how it usually is.
Well said.
Yeah, and so nowadays there are things like virtual field trips, which are really cool. Stacey, do you want to tell them a little bit about the one you did or we participated in?
Yeah, we did one through our charter, and it was super fun. It was from Mystic Seaport over on the East Coast, and they did kind of a planetarium type show. So it was really cool. They showed us like a website you could go to and see all the stars, and you can even put in like dates to know where everything's going to be like in a week. And so then they pointed out some of the constellations and showed us where like Mars and Jupiter and Saturn were. So that was really fun. Those were really easy to spot the past couple months. So we were able to go outside that night and the boys could like kind of find it. And they even remembered, they were telling like their grandparents like, oh, Mars, I can't remember now, but they were like, Mars is in the east, this is in the west. And so it was really cool to have that. I really hope that some companies do continue some of these virtual field trips because they're really awesome for homeschool families, especially with like young children, that it's sometimes harder to get out and go on field trips. So with these virtual options, it gives some more options for homeschoolers.
Yeah, and another example that I know you and I both took advantage of was the Cincinnati Zoo doing those videos. I think it was every day at the beginning of lockdowns and everything. They were kind of the first ones to get on this bandwagon of, just using the video medium to, reach people at home. So like my kids probably were exposed to more animals using that whole system on YouTube than they really have in person. So I thought that was really really cool.
During that time, those first like couple weeks of lockdown, and that zoo was doing that, my kids were looking forward to it every day. And they even asked me recently, like, what happened to that? And I think that's still doing things. So if you haven't checked out the Cincinnati Zoo YouTube page, definitely check them out. They're doing some good stuff over there.
Yeah, and all the videos that like we're talking about now, they're still on there. They're probably started in mid-March, so you can always go back in the archives. So that's what's so cool right now. One benefit, since we kind of have to look at the positives of every situation, is some certain subjects are a little more accessible. So even when things do go back to normal, that's something that you can take advantage of, is any sort of virtual field trips, or, special YouTube channels, or anything like that, where it kind of branches out. You're not just stuck in your own head,
Mm-hmm.
So that's always fun. Well, going back to what I was saying about homeschoolers, this year has been different. We never want anyone to ever really feel isolated. And that's basically why we created this channel. Stacey and I had already been homeschooling, and we noticed just so many people trying to connect with other homeschoolers, trying to get answers for their questions. And we all know, I mean, if you homeschool, you know that getting answers about homeschooling is extremely hard. I mean, everyone just has so many different answers for you, and they might not seem tailor-made for you. You kind of have to sift through a lot of information. So our goal has always been to create something that is as clear and concise as possible, and, very just, I don't know what the word is. We just want to make sure that things are as easy as possible for you, because God only knows that as homeschoolers, our lives are already as busy as they can be. So,
Yeah.
do you have anything to add to that, Stacey?
Yeah, no, like I remember seeing so many comments lately about, not lately, when everything first started and everyone was all these new homeschoolers were starting. And I just felt so bad when I would see someone says, "Oh, I want to start homeschooling. Like, what do I do? Or what curriculum do I get?" And the person posting has no idea that that is so broad. They're just like, "Oh, I'm going to homeschool." Yeah. Like, there's got to just be like a book I buy. And it just tells me, but there's like 500 books you could buy on how to homeschool. And so, I felt bad. These people had like 200 comments, and I was just like, oh no, they're going to get like so overwhelmed and everything that they're just going to like not know what to do. So that's where like you and I were trying to reach out in these Facebook groups and say, hey, give us some more details. Like, what do you like? What do you not like? Trying to give people some more advice on like, try to ask these questions if you're, because that's very broad, and you're going to get 200 comments that you have to sift through. And then one person's like, oh, don't do anything. And another person's like, oh, you need to buy this curriculum. It's the best. That's the only thing that'll make your kid read. So
that's almost worse, is getting all that information than getting no information. Because it's like, well, this is working for them, but why is it not working for me? Mm-hmm. Well, because they're a different family. So so that's why we started our channel. So we hope that that's kind of what we're getting across, is that, homeschooling doesn't have to be so complicated. We try to cut through all of, the extra information and just give you exactly what you need. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. It's just Kids Learning for Life. If you have already subscribed, thank you. We're at 307 subscribers. Yeah. So, we're growing. So we're just very happy with all the support we've gotten from anyone that's reached out to us, or, just found us. It's great. It makes us feel nice and warm and fuzzy. But I think we'll just kind of get started with the tips that we have come up with for to share with you on this topic of staying motivated. Staying motivated. I mean, this is a good time of year to talk about this, I feel like, because, it's the holiday season. So we've kind of taken time off. And it's, going into a new year. Right. It's good to reflect, especially at the beginning of a new year. You want to create new resolutions or just goals for the new year. So it's always a good time. I think this is my favorite time of year, just because I can reflect, but then also think about the future. I think that's true for you too, right, Stacey?
Oh yeah, being able to just like slow down a little bit. We're not doing as much school right now, and then getting to just look back and say, okay, what curriculum's working? What routines are working? What do we need to fix? And using this time for that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, okay, so let's start out with our first tip. So our first tip is to remember your why. Now, when you get into homeschooling, you get lost in the woods a little bit. Like, what I call it is like lost in the weeds, because I'm not going to just quote Frozen 2 all the time, okay?
I want to sing now.
What?
I want to sing Lost in the Woods since you said that. So
I know. We don't want to get sued for copyright infringement on this live video. But so yeah, it's like you just get so like caught up in the day-to-day or any issues that you're facing that it's kind of easy to forget why you started homeschooling in the first place. So, for example, for me, I mean, not homeschooling was never an option. I always wanted, well, my husband and I always planned on homeschooling our kids, and it's something we're very passionate about and that we're, grateful to be able to do. And so, yeah, I guess my why is that I would much rather have us educating our own children about what we want to educate them about in the way that is best for them, than sending my kids to school. And I know for many people it's natural to send kids to public school. I mean, Stacey and I both went to public school. It's normal, but for me personally, that just never felt really right. So I keep that in mind. It's like, well, if I were to stop homeschooling, what's the alternative? Something that I don't want to do. So got to stick with it. What about you, Stacey?
Yeah, I mean, my why kind of became, again, I have my teaching credential and I was learning how to become a teacher. And funny enough, while I was learning to become a teacher, it made me realize that kind of the best way for children to learn is, more one-on-one time, differentiated learning. And every child is different, even in a classroom or even in your own homeschool class, different children. And I mean, who better than to teach my children than myself is kind of what I thought, toot my own horn here. But I really just, wanted to always be a stay-at-home mom. And by the time my kids, I never was when they were like little. So by the time my kids were school age, I was able to kind of find a job that allowed me to homeschool and still use my credential. And here we are. And so I just remember, the why is that I get to be home with my kids and I get to spend time with them and I get to, nurture whatever interests they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that too. It's like, I just feel like if my kids were in a sea of 30 other students, their own needs might not be met. So I think that's why it's important that that families have the option of homeschooling. If that's something that's important to you, then that's something that you should be able to do. So yeah, just always remember your why. Write it down. I mean, we even have a how to start homeschooling note guide. If nothing else, just write down your why. It's the very first thing that we address in our how to start homeschooling series. So I highly recommend just on a paper, writing down why you chose to homeschool, put it up on a wall where no one can mess with it, and just, remind yourself of that consistently. I think that's really important.
Yes.
Okay, so our second tip for how to stay motivated is don't be afraid to make changes. So this is something that I think Stacey and I we're both kind of going through right now, especially, I'm now homeschooling independently, not through a charter anymore. So things are kind of changing. We really have to budget before we buy any sort of curriculum. So I'm looking into more options like lending libraries and the actual public library, and then cheap ways to buy curriculum. But I've also kind of scaled back the actual textbook curriculum. I actually just made my mid-year curriculum update video yesterday. So that'll be going up in a few weeks. And, I talk about all that there. So I don't want to spoil too much. But what about you, Stacey? How have you been making changes?
Yeah, I feel like this is one thing I did not realized so much when I started homeschooling is how many times you're going to change. I mean, I've been homeschooling. This is my third year homeschooling, and there's very few things that are exactly the same as when I started with my first child. I think my math curriculum is the only thing that's been the same, and I still wonder, like, sometimes, do I want to change that? There are so many options, and most of my changes are curriculum-wise. We've had some like life changes, we've moved. And so there's things like that where we have to adjust schedules. And, if my husband is working certain times or things like that, we have to adjust our schedule. But most of my changes are like choosing curriculum because I'm like a curriculum junkie and I want to try them all, but there's not enough time. There's really not. So, it's just always looking at what's working for my children and for me and trying to say, okay, is this working or not? If it's not, and you've given it a fair chance and you've tried the curriculum and it's just not flowing, don't be afraid to just find something else that will work for you.
Yeah, I agree. And back to kind of what I was saying before about homeschooling right now is very different than how homeschooling usually is, since we're living in the time of COVID. you might be thinking to yourself, my kids are driving me crazy. This curriculum's not working, blah, blah, blah. But maybe I don't want you to like be too quick to change things just because of COVID. Like, for example, like maybe you're experiencing more behavioral changes in your kids and you're like, no, we need to buckle down and really, really hit school hard every day. Well, that might not be what the problem is. Maybe it's just that they miss their friends or miss going to the park or miss going to gymnastics class. So just keep that in mind. But I mean, back to our original point, it really is a good idea to change things up if you need to. You don't have to feel married to any curriculum or any schedule or homeschool method ever. Like, that's the beauty of homeschool, is you can change things whenever you want to make it work for you. So let's make sure, you've given things a chance, but, don't be afraid to change things, like, or maybe test it out for a week if there's a certain change you want to make, and then go from there. So that's what's so great about homeschooling. That's why we love it, because we change all the time. And I like looking at curriculum too. Yeah. Stacey and I both love curriculum. Yeah.
Okay, so far we've got remember your why. We've got don't be afraid to make changes. And Jenny, what's our third tip for staying motivated this upcoming school year? Or sorry, year. The school year's already started.
Yeah, we're halfway through the school year for 2021. So our next tip is to connect with other homeschoolers in any way you can. So one way that Stacey and I really like to do this is on Facebook groups. So that's the big reason why we chose Facebook to go live on. But some places are we're in California, so we're pretty like locked down right now. But I know a lot of other places are not. So, maybe go to the park, maybe reach out on like Meetup, or even within those Facebook groups, see if any other homeschoolers want to meet, at a park, or if there's any co-ops in your area. I mean, there are so many ways to connect with people. Like, for example, I recently discovered this homeschool lending library that's run out of, there's a local church that runs this lending library. There's really no requirement for you to go in there and check out items. It's completely free. I mean, they have pretty much everything. I was blown away. But what I liked most about going and visiting was I was just talking to these other homeschoolers in my area, and that alone was just extremely refreshing and motivating, to be honest. I mean, they have the same problems that I do. As homeschoolers, we don't always encounter other people that have the same problems as us. So like homeschoolers have so many ways of working through issues, which I think is great. And so just homeschoolers are some of the smartest people. They're able to just like figure out their own way. So it's great to connect with people, ask them questions, see if you can be of help to them too. I mean, Stacey, how have you connected with other homeschoolers?
Yeah, for sure. Like, we've done a lot of virtual being in California, finding those virtual field trips, definitely finding our like close friends and family. So we, hang out with you guys as much as we can, just to kind of get to hang out. And, you and I will chat all the time. You have been a big part of my life this lockdown. But also just finding those other chances to relate to other homeschoolers. You can also check out our Facebook group, our Kids Learning for Life homeschool group. When Jenny and I find cool little fun things, we'll post them in there, and we love answering any questions you have about homeschooling in there. So I love to find people that have questions and be able to answer them, or help them. I really do, like, I love curriculum. I love researching things. So if you have a question, I don't know it, I like going on and like, oh, what would a good curriculum for you be, or things like that. So join our Facebook group, and it's super fun, and we can help you out more there.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, we definitely can help you if you need help. We have too much knowledge in here about different things. So it would be great to be able to share that. I'm not trying to say we're super smart or anything, but it's nice to like exercise this muscle that we've been like basically working out for this entire time. Okay, so yes, it's important to connect with people. So I guess our last tip number 4, is to reflect on the positive. So this can be really easy to forget about because life gets in the way. Kids are not always the easiest people to deal with. We all know this. But you really want to, right. And you sometimes just want to take a step back and think about progress that has been made. So that's why this time of year is really great, because we're not only looking forward, like I said, but we're also reflecting. So look at schoolwork or samples that you've collected from your kids' schoolwork from earlier in the year. I know my younger daughter, she literally did not know how to write at the beginning of the school year, and now she's using Explode the Code and writing in her answers like it's no problem. So that's just one thing that I've done to kind of reassure myself, okay, this is going well, I'm supposed to be doing this, this is good, everything's okay. What about you, Stacey?
Yeah, I mean, just being able to look back at what they're doing. So I also like to utilize, our charter uses some assessment programs. So being able to look at those, they'll be testing again kind of at the mid-year coming up. So I'll be able to see how much they've grown. And so I'm really looking forward to see those, because there are some days where you forget that your kids are learning, and you always think, oh, I didn't do enough school. Or I mean, we all face this, I promise. If you are sitting there and you're like, oh yeah, I could have been doing more, I should have been doing more. But I mean, in reality, our kids are learning, and they're soaking up stuff that we don't even know. So it is so surprising to me sometimes where even if they're struggling in one area, they're probably starting to flourish in others that you don't even notice. So looking at kind of those samples or assessments and being able to see that growth is really going to help you. So if you don't already collect a few of their samples in the beginning of the year, and then mid and kind of end, to just be able to show yourself and your kid what they've done already. So it's just a fun thing to do, and to keep yourself motivated and be like, look, we are learning stuff. Let's keep going. Let's keep doing it.
And that's a good point. I like that point of not just motivating yourself as the parent, but motivating your child. Because, we get so wrapped up in oh, this is hard for me. But, school can also be kind of challenging for kids, depending on the subject or how your child learns. There's always kind of, difficulties or challenges there that you have to figure out ways to get past. There's no such thing as a perfect homeschool child or a perfect homeschool family. So I think that's a cool idea to, show your child their own progress. I know I did that last year with my older daughter. I said, at the beginning of the school year, you didn't even know how to write your name, and now you're writing sentences. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And I think that's beneficial for the whole family, not just you or the kid. It's for everyone, we need to all be on board here.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We should probably just start wrapping this up a little bit. Those were all the tips we had. We just want to remind you, homeschooling is not necessarily easy. We know it's challenging. That's why there are so many homeschool YouTube channels and, Facebook groups and podcasts, which I love. But, it's not easy, but what it is rewarding. I mean, the moment your child makes some sort of breakthrough in math, that's on you. You can have pride for accomplishing that with your child. Or, the moment they start to be able to read independently, and you can introduce them to all sorts of books you read as a child. I mean, that's an amazing feeling. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm hoping soon my kids will be able to read independently some of the books that I've bought for them. So it's such a good feeling when you see so much progress taking place in your child.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's everything you said, as well as, it's hard on you, and it's so challenging on some days, and especially if you don't know what you're doing. Even myself, I went to school to be a teacher, got my teaching credential. I am no more like qualified to homeschool than any one of you. It's totally different. A teacher learns how to teach certain things, but I'm still learning. I love my reading curriculum because I'm actually learning how to teach reading. You don't necessarily learn that in like your credentialing program necessarily. Yes, we have all about reading. If you aren't using it and you're looking for a new reading curriculum, we have a video about it. You can learn all about it. I guess my video was so good, Jenny decided to use it. So
It was. I had never, yeah. Stacey convinced me.
yeah. So I just kind of want to tell you, you can do it too. It's not, you don't need a fancy credential or anything like that. You just need to want to learn with your kids. Like we are called Kids Learning for Life because Jenny and I, we're still kids and we're learning as we're going. So, you know, no matter how old you are, you're still going to be learning something.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Yeah, I think that's great. I don't really have anything else to add to that. I think that was just perfect.
Awesome.
Well, I want to mention to anyone, you know, watching this, if you do want additional help and you want just like one-on-one counseling type help with your homeschool, which I feel like we've all been there. There's just so many questions when it comes to homeschooling. We do offer homeschool consultations, and they're actually half off through the month of January. So if you book it anytime before January 31st, then we can help you. And we can help you year round, but it's way, way, way cheaper to do it now. So I would definitely not wait. Go ahead and book that. So just to go over what our homeschool consultations consists of a meeting like this one for 45 minutes, they usually run about 45 minutes. And then after that, we send you an email with all sorts of links or information that you specifically requested or that we kind of generated for you based on your needs. And then you also, I think this is the most valuable part, is you have a month worth of unlimited email access to us. So you can email us your questions at any time, day or night. And we're like right on those emails. I mean, we usually get back to you within a few hours. So you could ask any of your complicated homeschool questions there as well. So it's a really nice resource to take advantage of. We've done this a few times with different families and it's always been great. One thing I'd like to mention is that Stacey and I are both very different homeschoolers. So you're kind of getting like two people's advice for the price of one, which I think is really valuable. So definitely check that out if you need some specific help. We're more than happy to help you.
Exactly.
Let's see.
All right, how are we doing? I think we're doing good on time. Thank you to those of you that are sticking around all the way to the end. We really appreciate every single one of you. Like we said at the beginning, we're gaining more subscribers and more people that we're really here for you and because of you. So, we would love to connect with you on Instagram or Facebook, join our group, whatever way you want to connect, let's connect because that's what we're here for.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube as well if you haven't already.
Yep.